Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Digital Marketing Podcast. This episode, there's a backstory to it. Alex traveled back from South Africa. I traveled back from California, and we have got a bit jet lagged, but we are ready to rock and roll. Alex, how are you?
I mean, you sort of, I guess, packaged it nicely. I'm looking forward to the weekend that is about to start. But yet, no matter what, I think the topic that we have for you guys today is really interesting and super relevant.
Alex, something that I was thinking about. When I got to California, there was a session about ChatGPT and writing, right? And there was a panel. This panel had four people. And you know what I was thinking is like, if I have to why don't they invite ChatGPT to the panel and let the computer answer the questions as well, right? That would have been interesting.
I mean, yeah, yes and no, and I guess that's like where exactly where I think our conversation will sort of lead. It's like if you give it a bad prompt, you'll probably get a poor result back. And I was
This
like, yeah, that and if you haven't trained it, you'll probably even get nothing at all to the likeness where you want to be at.
That is true. Like, I mean, to me, the part that like I find it fascinating is that there is a lot of there are different ways to use AI when it comes to content marketing, right? But I feel that what I find it the most useful for is to provide talking points, data points, and the AI coming up with potential topic for you to cover. That's what I think is very helpful because I don't like the AI to necessarily write stuff for me in the sense of actually using content per se, because I like to give my touch, my own strategy, because I'm sure you write content, I write content, we have our unique ways to write content, but the work, the baseline of the work of giving you talking points, that's actually quite powerful, I feel.
So I mean, yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, let's talk about ChatGPT. I mean, Gemini, I guess, has had its bumpy sort of release on its own, but using generative AI, I mean, yeah, I agree. If you have a good prompt, um, and you sort of give it a couple of like back and forth. I mean, I think it's turned out to. Sorry, friends, but one of my better sparring partners in terms of challenging, like, because it actually has a tendency of giving perspective that I've never really thought of, and it's quite intriguing how something that I thought was pretty close boxed
Yeah.
actually, like, the dimensions just opens up, and it's like, of course I should have thought about that before. So it's for sure. I think it's extremely good at that. Um, but I mean, considering like the topic, I have I guess the privilege of working with pretty senior people in the content SEO industry. Um, and the people in my team, I think in all, I think we have in total about 8 years of experience of SEO.
Yeah.
So we're six people, everyone above 12 years of experience. So it's an
A
interesting
lot
sort
of
of.
experience, yeah.
But I asked them a bit about AI. Like, I threw it out there. It's like, according to you, you know, the balance act.
I,
Um,
and what did they say?
I think conclusion here is that you I think it's a fantastic tool to do the basics, to sort of give you the first 50%. So all of a sudden you have a tool that helps you with the 50% of the work with good prompts. Again, like, I think, like, you can't like put that more sincere, that it's important that you feed it proper information that is very detailed. or else you will not get very good information back. But I think like that side, because as soon as you start, as you said there, Rocco, like we all both of us are writing and sharing our content.
But let me ask you something, Alex,
Yeah,
because
but let me just complete it. The voice or the brand voice disappears when you start sort of adding something that is generative and speaks general.
that is true. But I think people are afraid to say something, because you mentioned, for example, 50% of the 50% of the work, right? But let's remove from this conversation industries that are in regulated spaces. So, for example, healthcare, right? In healthcare, there are so many laws that a computer won't know that, right? But let's assume we are writing a blog for a company selling food mixers, right? Most likely their blog is going to be a recipe, right? A recipe for a smoothie. Now, if you're going to do a chocolate smoothie, there are not many ways to do a chocolate smoothies. Yeah, you can add,
Ooh, you
yeah,
have
let's say,
clearly your wife does not like chocolate smoothies, eh?
no, but you can say, I want the chocolate smoothie with Oreos. Like, the process is that. Brand voice in an article, I don't think it counts more than 5%, right? Like, it's not 50%. So what I think that some people are scared to say is that in certain industries, particularly where your content cannot be as unique, because best practices are best practices, right? Like, there is no way to redefine best practices unless you do a research study. Actually, an AI might do well 80% of the work. And your work is going to be adding the sprinkles to the smoothie. It could be using a different brand of chocolate. You could be using a different type of milk. But at the end of the day, like I feel like people are thinking of AI as, if I say I use too much AI, people think I'm not good enough. What I think instead is that AI gives my content the possibility to really be good, because now I don't waste time writing things that everybody can write because they're best practices, but I can take that time, that 1 hour that I would have used to write it, to actually add my extra spice to the content in a way that before I couldn't because I didn't have the time. So I think, like, that's
I mean, I mean, I get your point, and I think I think for those sort of in the SEO world and sort of we've gone through a couple of quarters or months now where Google is sort of forcing down this
yeah.
theme called useful content and like EAT, or what is it? EEAT in terms of content, which sort of shows experience, it shows expertise, authority, and trust.
Yeah.
And yes, you're 100% right. I mean, to a greater extent, yes, you are able to allow, say, 80% of something like a chocolate smoothie recipe to be sort of covered that way, but you need to add that personal touch to show that, okay, you've been a sous chef at a like 2-star Michelin restaurant.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is like your touch to it, and therefore you all of a sudden have the experience, that you have the authority, and most likely you should have some sort of trust,
Yeah.
because
Alex,
so
I have an idea. I have an idea for you. You're an SEO guru, and I wanted your opinion on this. So we agree, right? Like, between 50 and 80% of the work is done by AI, and then you add the
I think
sprinkles.
I think again,
It
you
depends on the
can't
content.
exactly, because you're now using black and white, and it's not right to use that
So
either, because it depends on.
So what if, in an article, you openly admit to the customer, to the reader, which part of the article was written by an AI, and then for each section you have a part where you say, and here is my take on this strategy and how I adapted using my own experience. Almost as if total transparency. Let's say you're writing an article about making a keyword research. The bases are the same unless you don't know how to do a keyword research, right? But then you have probably a few cards up your sleeves that make yours a bit better. So the article could be, this article is partially written by AI. Here is the section where I'm adding my secret sauce. I feel that would be like a good compromise.
I mean, I think the problem with generative AI, at least, is we want unique content as well, and unique content, unfortunately, comes back to to at least content that you're referring to, uh, similar, etc. But I think I'm coming from someone that uses AI and have an okay understanding of it as something that can support me in my everyday,
Yeah.
and not an expert in terms of how large language models per definition works. And I don't have enough data points to start training sort of a generative AI sort of persona.
Yeah.
I think once we maybe will be in that fortunate situation, I think I'll retract my sort of way of talking about it, because when you start training something with your own data points, and you're able to feed it in a smart way, I think we live in a world that is extreme. We have the 1% that is sort of very far here. They're
Yeah.
training content with their own content because they actually sit on so many data points, and therefore their data modeling and their AI actually turns out to be pretty good.
Yeah.
But then you have the other 99% of the world, which I'm still belonging to, and I think both of us belong here there. We don't have that luxury, and therefore I'm still skeptic to this. And I do a lot of double checks when we tested AI content. They always being marked for duplicated content. Um, there are too many sentence structures that have been borrowed, um, in in such a way that it doesn't make it unique. It just pulls things. And then for you, Rocco, then to go in and change maybe 10% of that article is not enough.
No, I agree. But like I do feel that this is gonna change because I mean, when it comes to articles, Alex, we have written articles, both of us, for many magazines, right? No matter if you write it through a machine or unique, after you write 5 articles about keyword research, they're all gonna sound the same. And it's just the 10% that makes the difference, right? Like at the end of the day, like I kind of let me do an analogy with sport. A 1% improvement in an athlete will make a huge difference on the end result. When you
Yep.
work with marketers that are at the top of their game, what makes the difference between 10 conversions and 100 conversions is probably 1% difference. Is that 1% makes the whole difference. So, I actually would like to see, and I'm not sure when we can see that. I don't know when that will happen. But I have a feeling that the next step is going to be for Google or any other search engines out there to be able to scrape content from video. Like, for example, what we are doing right now, we are having a live webinar, right? We do not have a machine talking for us. Now, scrape the content. That's authentic content. That's not a machine talking for Alex, unless, Alex, you have set up a very smart AI. Now, I think that kind of content is going to take over. I think it just makes sense because uh, that's what I think it will be the most likely scenario, rather than having machines that can write very basic articles that everybody, even when they write themselves, they all look the same, compared to people putting time or companies putting time into creating valuable content.
I mean, you hit the hammer on the nail on valuable content, and if it's valuable, you have an AI writing it on your behalf. It's probably not that important, but I mean, I think for sure, and I think we, we've we've only really scratched the surface of what AI is about. I
Yeah.
think, I mean, all of us, or some of us, might have seen the what ChatGPT has been doing with imagery, and unfortunately, we can't use that tool yet. But Sora, in terms
Oh
of,
yeah, it looks great, man. It looks amazing.
and all of a sudden, and they've really like squandered a competitor that you need a Discord server for, not mentioning names,
Yeah.
um, in any way. But we've really only started the journey. And I mean, I've personally, in my own business, admittedly started using it. I mean, yes, I mean, it's my own brainstorming person. Before I sort of I test my thoughts on it before I sort of, I guess I come out of that sort of session a bit more enriched. I can then take it on and actually speak to people and clients, and people that I know that are specialists in the field, and sort of also test ideas, which is really great. But also started incorporating a lot of automation and AI throughout my our everyday week. I mean, we had a big project in October, November last year that saved a tremendous amounts of hours, um, in terms of just gathering information.
No,
So it's
I
not
agree.
really about, like, it's not about content, but it's really how you can utilize the fundamentals of that will become content, but then you can put someone that has 15 years of experience on top of that once it's been compiled.
I agree because if I were a brand, Alex, I would be majorly upset if I have to pay somebody to do work that a machine could do. So if I'm paying somebody money, all what I want is your 15 years experience strategizing, growing my business. I don't want your 15 years experience doing a keyword research because I feel I'm wasting my money, right? So from a company standpoint, I feel that you have got to learn how to use every aspect of AI because it's like otherwise you're going to do a Formula One race with a bicycle. Like you need to get a good Formula One car if you want to run a Formula One race. So I feel it's like necessary. It's not like an option. Now there is gonna be a big difference between early adopters and late adopters because the early adopters, they're gonna get used to how fast things change in the AI world. The late adopters, they're gonna be like finding themselves at a loss when it comes to understanding the whole scenario. Like for example, this ChatGPT 4 now has zillion plugins. When it opened up, there were three and they were in beta. Now you can have one that there was one the other day that talks to you like your mean boss. You can ask question and then it answers you as a mean boss. And there are useful one like image generation. For example, image generation. I don't necessarily use it, but let's say I'm writing an article. I was like, what image would you use for an article like that? And it gives you an idea, like saves you a lot of thinking time.
No, I mean, I I think it would be foolish not to use it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of I think the only thing one should always use, when using it. I mean, it's similar to like reading news and whatever, but you need to be critical in terms of your thinking.
Of
It's like,
course.
oh, well, it sounds so convincing. They must be right.
No,
It
of
was
course.
like, yeah, well, your prompt was 2 words, and you buying the first output. I was like, probably not.
You know,
You,
in one company I work with, Alex, we didn't like the word artificial intelligence because you always need the human brain to process that information. So we start calling it artificial human intelligence because it takes two brains, the computer brain and the human brain.
I mean, it's a good point, and I mean, I know people that worked and are still working at Nvidia, which sort of became like a brand, like a name from nowhere because of its last year and this year
Yeah.
for, I think, for normal humans. Um, but for a very long time, even though they were working with AI because they had so many data points, they weren't allowed to call it AI. They called it machine learning.
Yeah.
And because the thing here is that considering that I'm a layman and I come from the normal deadlies, again, I don't fully grasp how a large language model really works. And therefore it's also difficult to me to sort of address it from that aspect and the difference between machine and
Yeah.
um, but that was the case for a very long time. I think things have changed lately, but yeah, I think the different. But I like the human side. I think at least I've heard horror stories lately about people that have used. Because the thing here is that Google, if we are sort of talking about content at least, and if content is supposed to create some sort of value besides to your users, but you need to reach your users in some way, and most likely organic reach is a way for you to reach them. And it was like a wild, wild west for a couple of months at the end of last year, and partly still is, where Google's algorithm is sort of being calibrated
Yeah.
to what is what. And people that I know that have set up very successful businesses based on AI created content. They were something for 2 months, and from being like a hero, they went to zero overnight because all of a sudden Google just did a little. "Oh, no, that wasn't useful enough," and we can tell that it's directly written by AI.
Alex, I know we are running out of time, but based on what you said, you made me think of a phrase that I would like to be the last thought before we conclude the episode. Can we say, after talking for half an hour about AI and content, that artificial intelligence is as smart as the person that actually uses it? So if you're not smart using it, artificial intelligence is not smart, but if you're smart the way you use it, and you're smart as a person using it in a certain way, it can really help you.
Yes, but if you're smart and you have a couple of hundred, if not millions of data points to train your model, you'll be even smarter. So you
There
have
you
stupid, human, smart, and then you have a lot of data that sort of backs you up to sort of train it to what you want to accomplish. And with that, you already today, you'll be able to accomplish greatness.
go. Well, that's a nice way to end the episode because I really like how you concluded that, Alex. And we are gonna keep all of our audience in touch in regards to the next episodes that we're gonna have. At this point, it's already March. I forgot February at 29 days. But Alex, thank you so much for joining. I know you were on a lot of trips, so I really appreciate taking the time for this. And
Oh,
and we're gonna post on LinkedIn the dates of our next episode, guys. Have a good day. Bye bye,
Have a
Alex.
great day. Ciao.